Hello, welcome to David Galata Book Dreamer. I'm David Galata, and today I'm dreaming up a cover for my upcoming book, Nascent. I've got the first layer in, but I've got to make some changes. See, the problem is when you're setting up your book cover, edges are going to end up missing, usually about yay much at the top and bottom, and a small amount on the side. This has to shift over just a bit. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to shift this over. I also want to kind of change the shape a little bit. So we're going to get into that. First, let me get some colors out. I'm going to grab some of this bone white, which is actually also called Old Holland Yellow Light. I don't know why they call it that. I guess technically it is a yellow, but it doesn't look like yellow. It looks like bone white. So that's what I call it. And I want to get that dark color in because I'm going to need more of that. So I'm going to use olive green, nice dark olive deep. And this is all Old Holland paint because that's what I use. I use Old Holland paint. Yeah. Every now and then I'll use some Sennelier, but I really prefer the Old Holland. Uh, I got some Payne's Gray. And for those of you who want to know more about these colors, um, it really isn't too hard because there's a lot out there about these colors. Payne's Gray is a wonderful thing. And this is a green. I don't need this one right now, so I'm gonna put it aside. I'm gonna put it aside. So I'm gonna mix the Payne's Gray with a little touch of that beautiful olive green, and just give it a second here as I mix them. There we go. Oh, look at that, huh? It's a nice match. This is why I always set aside the paints for a particular painting. While I'm working on it, I keep those paints that I'm using together. I'm just using my palette knife to mix them up right now. Sorry it's off the screen. Been having some technical issues. Um, One of them is also my microphone. And I do apologize. And I thank everyone who's watching for being here. Thank you very, very much. And if you'd like, please give me a little thumbs up and subscribe. That does help. Now this is layer two, and layer two, if I'm going to make a correction on a painting, I would rather it were on layer two than later on because, oh, the further on you get along, oh, the worse it gets. It really does get messy after a while. I'm just going to take a little bit of turpentine here, just a touch. I don't want a lot. I want this to dry a little faster. So, because it is a correction. It is a correction. So if I'm going to be doing corrections, then I just want some turpentine in the brush itself. I'm not actually mixing it in the palette. I'm putting it in the brush, and then I'm taking the brush and I'm getting some of that turpentine into the paint on the brush itself. That's what I like to do. All right, so I want to really mark off where do I want this to start, and I need this for the title. So this is just enough. See, I'm going too far again. There we go. That will do much better. Now I want this down a little more. Almost want it lozenge shaped. There we go. Now I want it to be an unusual shape. There. And just covering over what I had before. What I had before, quite honestly, is just a very thin layer of color, which is great because now I get to kind of do things with it that I need to do to bring things back into where it is in my head and to keep it nicely centered in the work so that when I actually get this onto the cover platform, it's going to work really well. All right. I'm not really worried about up here. Yeah, that works really beautifully. In fact, I'm even gonna bring it out a little bit. There we go. And bring this down and around. Let's see, we're gonna go right to there. That's as far out as I want to go because I'm gonna lose this strip here. Gonna absolutely lose that strip. So that's as far as I'm gonna go with that. I also have notes here on colors and textures based on the book. That's important. Even though I wrote the book, I want to make sure I'm doing it right. Okay, now I'm going to need some green. I'm picking a nice opaque cadmium green. You can see it's like really, really opaque. And I want to add to that some green from here. This is a golden green, which is a really interesting color, especially when mixed with other greens. It knocks them down a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, it just knocks them down just a touch. All right, so let me grab a brush. Got a nice brush right here to work with. And again, I'm just going to absorb a little bit of turpentine into the bristles of my brush. And now I'm going to mix those two greens together. Let's see what we get from that. Oh, that's glorious. In fact, I'm not even going to mix them too much. I don't want it to be streaky. Yeah, I don't want it to be too smooth. There, see, that's nice. That's a nice match to what's going on here. Again, this is why we hold on to colors. Otherwise, oh, goodness, I'd be going crazy. So this comes out here and it knocks on down. And now I got an opportunity to, there we go. Just knock it on down. And then from here, I can do this kind of a thing. Now, this is just a bottom base color, which is great because that means I can continue to work. Don't really have to worry too much about where it's going. Not right now. Right now, that's the least of my worries. All right. My biggest concern is making sure that this remains over just a bit and is a little more refined in its shape. That's really all I care about right now. There we go. I'm just gonna blur this line just a touch with a little bit of that green. Yeah, it really helps. We're gonna add some more right there. There we go. I want to make sure that this actually is almost like a bottom color. It's gonna swirl out here. It's gonna do this. There we go. There. And we kind of go back and forth until we've got what we need there. Now I need a brighter color. So I'm going to get the permanent green. It's very bright green. It's a really lovely color. I'm going to get some of that on there. Palette. I'm just going to go right to the same brush. I'm not going to bother cleaning it off or anything like that. I just want a bit of this green right here. And again, this is a very opaque color. Really a nice color for this sort of thing. There we go. Bring that down. I'm going to bring some right here just to brighten that up just a touch, just a little bit. And I'm going to bring this down here like so. And I'm going to make a nice streak there. All right. Good. For this book, I'm very excited. The editing is almost finished. For the manuscript itself, it's almost done. So I'm really, really pleased about that. I'm also going to use a little bit of yellow. And I'm going to use a cadmium yellow deep. Cadmium yellow deep Um, Mixes well with green without being too bright. It's wonderful if you want to just kind of mess with the green that's already there. You just want to bring in, there we go. Just want to break the color up a little bit. Maybe brighten part of it just a touch. There we go. Now we got nice and streaky here with this. Yeah, that's good. There, that's better. Good. Now these are just guides because actually what I'm planning on doing is once I have to get this done first because this is all the way in the back. Everything else is forward of this point. So that means I have to do this first. And then, excuse me, I'm just picking up my rag. Then it's going to have to come in. And this goes on top of all that. So this has to be done first. But for this part, I'm actually going to be using my fancy kit of palette knives. These are not typical palette knives, as you can see. These are very unusual palette knives that do all kinds of textures and shapes and whatnot that are, your typical palette knife looks like this, typical blade. These are not that. These are a whole collection of really wonderful shapes. And a lot of people haven't seen these before. You might have seen this one, the good old Bob Ross style. But some of these are very unusual. This one has like fine teeth at the very tip to bring in textures. We're going to be using palette knife for most of this painting, which is very exciting because that means I get to use a lot of textures in order to say what I want to say. And that's a lot of fun. And I'm also using these. These are rubberized nubs, and they carve into paint. So you can carve all kinds of details. So I've got a nice little batch of these as well that I'm going to use. They kind of look like brushes, but they're actually a turpentine impervious rubber that really does a nice job. It really does. It's a good scraping technique, and I've used it before. So this isn't unknown territory for me, thank goodness. That would be bad. Uh, no, I've done this before. So let's see, where are we at here? Good, good, good. All right, so now I need a blue. I got to make shapes in there. Okay, all kinds of shapes, and what I'm using right now is this is an Old Holland turquoise blue. I'm going to add just a touch of that. It's like a really bright blue, with a little bit of green to it. It's got a little touch of green, not too much. I mean, there are green turquoises, which is very interesting. I have that, but I don't want to use it for this one. And then I've also got this beautiful Delft blue. I'm going to use some of that. Just a little bit. I don't want too much. A lot. This paint is very powerful, and a lot goes a long way. I hate wasting paint, even though I do. I do. I admit it. I am guilty of that. Yes, I am. And then I'm going to want a deep blue. And the reason I want the deep blue is I want that to actually be like a separate color. Now it's going to be a separate color. Now, I am not going to be using a palette knife for this, and nor am I going to be using any kind of turpentine or medium. It's going to be straight paint. I'm going to pick this brush. This is a filbert by Isaby. Really good. The isocryl brushes are wonderful. And I know, excuse me, you know, um, acrylic brushes for oils. Yes, actually. Watercolor brushes for oils. Absolutely. Um, just because a paintbrush is not rated for a particular medium doesn't mean it can't be used for it. Just expect it to fall apart out over time. It's not going to last forever because you are using it for something that normally is not used for. I'm just going to use the leadings that were on that palette knife to mix two light blues. I'm just going to brighten up the dark blue just a touch with what's left on the blade. There we go. Okay. Palette knife wiped off and away. All right. Now, oop, I hit the camera. I'm just so excited. I'm going to start with the dark blue. Always start with your darks and then add your lights on top. And what I'm going to do here, I have to pick 3 points. So here's 1, 2, and 3. And again, I am going very much by the description of my own book. Wave these on. You can see what I'm doing here. It can pull and then gets darker as we pull along. And just like that. Yeah, I'm just getting color into this thing. Just getting that fit of color. Oh, and I'm not giving anything away either, which is kind of fun. I'm sure some people might be concerned that I am. Even if you understood what this was, it wouldn't be a spoiler. The nice thing is I can also see this on my computer screen as I'm recording, which gives me an idea of what this is going to look like when it's photographed. So this is actually a very handy thing for me to be showing you what I'm doing and how, because it actually allows me to preview my material before it is done. I'm gonna bring this around here. Again, this darker area is going to be at the bottom, so I want it nice and dark. Now, if I had tried to do the edges here first and then do this inside up, can you imagine the mistakes I'd be making? Oh, it'd be terrible. And it would be very hard to correct. So always go with the thing in the background. If I mess up here, I can always paint over the whole thing. And that's not as big a problem as you might think. Now, it would be if this were fine art, and I'll tell you why. Because with fine art, it's supposed to last a long time, and after like 50 years, you would see the undercoats. You would see all the various layers because oil paint becomes more and more transparent as it ages and dries. Um, and that's in part because of the linseed. That's what the linseed kind of does. It cures. It doesn't really dry. It cures. You know. So at least it doesn't ferment. That would be worse. That would be way worse. There we go. Good, good. Now, just getting some like little details here and there. There we go. All right. So that's where we're starting from. That's where we're starting from. All right. I'm going to put this brush aside. Now I'm going to go for a clean brush. Slightly smaller, still a filbert because I like working with those. And I'm going to go with the lighter color now, which is this light blue. And then when this is dry, I got to do the same thing with a gold yellow. So, yeah. Layers, layers, and layers. That's what this is all about. Layers and layers and layers. Layers of color and texture. That's what brings all this to life. Now here I've got, this is very bright. So you don't want to go too far. You don't want to go crazy with it because it'll look unnatural, even though, well, it is unnatural. There we go. I just want Certain things highlight just a bit. You can see I can do all kinds of maneuvering in here. The nice thing about a wet on wet technique is that you can do that. You can really shape and mold the color as you need. So for those of you who don't like drawing out the whole painting before you start coloring it, well, wet on wet technique is the way to go. It really is. It's the way to go. If you want to learn a lot about wet on wet, check out Bob Ross. You know, I would say Monet if he had videos, but you know, we don't get to see how Monet paints. More the pity. I would pay a lot to spend an hour to watch Monet paint, just to see how he did it. You know, there's anecdotes from people who knew him, but nothing's like actually seeing the artist painting, seeing how their hand moves, where their eye jumps to. You know, are they being methodical or are they kind of bouncing around? And you know, you can learn a lot from that. So I'm kind of glad that I'm preserving my own techniques this way. This way, if anyone's interested in my work, they'll get a chance to see how I did this. It's kind of nice. People complain about technology all the time, and I don't get it. You know, technology can be a wonderful tool when used appropriately. I just think a lot of people are perhaps not using it so appropriately. So now it looks like I've got 3 gaps being squeezed together here, which is exactly what I want. All right, we're gonna wipe off this brush. I got my blues where I want them, but I'm gonna go back into this really dark color that I made before, and I want to kind of clean this up in here. Just clean it up. You can see I can actually push the paint around because it's still wet. And because it is as heavily textured as it is, I can really shove it to wherever I want to without really worrying. There we go. Oh, that looks nice. Bounce off that little bit of texture there. A little too much. Sorry if I sound congested. I am. I got terribly sick after the can affair. Um, so yeah, there's a flu going around, I hear. I'm not going to worry about it too much. You know, flu is flu. I can't take a vaccine for it anyway. I'm deathly allergic to what they use for the flu vaccine. So, so I just had to deal with that for most of my life, really. And my body just adapts as best it can. So now I see I'm still using this brush. I'm still darkening this space. I want it to seem larger than it is. There we go. There we go. Because there's going to be all this shadowing if it's really big. If it's tiny, not so much. So I want to make sure that shadowing is there. All right. That's really good. I'm enjoying this. See, that's how I know it's good. I'm enjoying myself. All right. Now, this has to dry before I do anything else with it. I've corrected its position. I've corrected its shape. I've gotten the first layer of color on the inside. So the next time we get together, we're going to do the second color on the inside and start in with those wonderful shapes that we get with the palette knives. And then we also have to do some gloss work. So that'll be a lot of fun. All right, folks, I hope you have enjoyed. I've enjoyed doing this, and I will see you again soon here at Galata Studios. And Nascent's coming up. It'll be here in a month, so very excited, folks. All right, until next time, happy reading, everyone. Take care.